Super Mario RPG on the Nintendo Switch is a remake developed by Art Piazza which released back in November 2023. Known for their work on remaking entries in the Dragon Quest series, this remake promised to reimagine the classic Super Mario RPG Legend of the Seven Stars in full 3D while preserving the essence that made the original so beloved. One of the first things I noticed on starting a new game is how smooth the movement feels compared to the original. Back on the SNES, we were confined to the movable directions of the D-pad and a level of responsiveness that can make navigating the isometric world a bit clunky, but more modern analog controls ensure that movement is precise and provides a much better experience traversing through the game's environments and puzzles, despite the sometimes awkward sense of depth the camera angle can provide. You can maneuver around obstacles and line up jumps more easily, and it just feels right to be able to have that freedom of movement in a Mario game. And I think the developers did an excellent job adapting the controls to modern standards without losing the original feel entirely. Saying that, puzzles and level design being the same as it was back then can still lead to some real frustration when the need for precision is countered by tedious level design. But as always, I'm getting a little ahead of myself. Like any RPG, combat is a secondary pillar to story, and Super Mario RPG still uses classic turn-based RPG combat, but with some key differences. Timed hits are back and function in the same ways they did in the original, but with, in my experience, more forgiving timing windows. For those unfamiliar with Mario RPG mechanics, the player can press a button on their controller at just the right moment when attacking or defending an enemy attacked, to either increase your damage dealt or reduce damage taken. It always was a simple mechanic, but it keeps you engaged during battles, and the simplified version in the original Super Mario RPG was the first appearance of this now quintessential and unique to the Mario franchise game mechanic. But the remake introduces the action gauge and chains. Each time you successfully perform an action command, like nailing that timed hit or perfect guard, the action gauge fills up. Once it hits 100%, you unlock the ability to use a gauge move. If you have all three party members active, you can unleash a triple move, a powerful combo attack that can turn the tide of battle. The Clown Car Barrage, for example, has Mario, Mallow, and Bowser hop into the Koopa Clown Car and rain down a barrage of elemental attacks onto your enemies, providing not just a visual spectacle but also significant damage. Then there are chains. By consecutively timing your action commands, you build up a chain count. At certain milestones, like a chain of 2, 3, or 5, you'll receive temporary buffs, which can range from increased attack power to a faster filling action gauge, depending on which characters are in your party. For instance, if Mario is in your party, your action gauge fills faster, while if Mallow is present, your magic attack increases. This system adds a strategic layer, allowing the player to consider not just who is strongest, but whose buffs will benefit you most in a given scenario. However, not everything has been modernized. Some of the original game's more frustrating puzzles remain largely unchanged. The Yoshi Race, for instance, is a rhythm-based mini-game where you race against Boshi by pressing buttons in an alternating rhythm to gain speed. The timing is still quite annoying and the controls feel a bit imprecise, leading to some frustrating retries identical to the ones faced when playing the original game. Another example is the bomb jumping puzzle in Booster's Tower, which requires you to precisely land on a seesaw with a bob-omb on the other side to be able to reach higher. But the isometric perspective always did make judging the angle and distance quite tricky, and failure means climbing back to the top all over again. This and other similarly designed puzzles could have benefited more from some tweaking to reduce player frustrations, and I think it's a missed opportunity to refine some aspects that didn't age quite as well. And while I can appreciate authenticity to the original, I would have liked some of the rougher edges to have been smoothed out in the remake. Status effects play a significant role in combat. Enemies frequently use abilities that can poison, silence, or put your characters to sleep. While this adds a layer of strategy, forcing you to manage ailments and adjust your tactics, it can also be a source of frustration. Some status effects last longer than you'd expect, and without the right items or spells, you might find yourself in a tight spot. Items like Able Juice, now renamed Cleansing Juice, can cure these ailments, but they'll take up valuable inventory space due to the item quantity limit. It's a bit of a balancing act that not everyone will appreciate, but it is less frustrating than it was in the original due to the remake's far less limited inventory space. Super Mario RPG starts with a familiar trope. Princess Peach gets kidnapped by Bowser only to be confronted and defeated by our ever-popular plumber, Mario. Subsequently, you meet Mallow, a cloud boy who believes he's a tadpole, and together the new duo set off to retrieve the boy's stolen coin. The narrative quickly expands when Bowser's keep is taken over by a strange extraterrestrial force known as the Smithy Gang. Led by Smithy himself, the gang destroys the Star Road, a mystical pathways where wishes are granted, and proceeds to invade the Mushroom Kingdom. Mario has to travel around the kingdom to collect stars, rebuild the Star Road, and defeat the Smithy Gang with the help of new, old, and surprising ally, Geno, a star spirit inhabiting a wooden doll who joins Mario and Mallow on their quest to repair the Star Road and restore the ability to grant wishes. Bowser becomes an ally shortly after his castle is overtaken to take back what was stolen from him, and you are eventually joined by Princess Peach, who also wants to help save the kingdom, rounding off your cast of heroes. The visual presentation is a love letter to the original, with environments using more detailed and up-to-date textures while staying true to the original's layouts and level design. For example, the forest maze retains its mysterious atmosphere, but now with enhanced lighting and textures that make it feel more alive than the blurry mess of a color palette the original game could often be. Character models have been updated while preserving their iconic looks. Enemies like the Axum Rangers and bosses like Smithy are more expressive, with animations that add more personality to each encounter. Yoko Shimomura returns to rearrange the soundtrack and brings a new depth to their familiar 16-bit counterparts, and players are also given the option to switch between the new arrangements and the original SNES tracks at any time, which I personally appreciated quite a bit. The remake doesn't just stop at visuals and sound. There are several quality of life improvements that modern gamers will appreciate. For starters, there's a new map submenu that allows for fast travel between areas you've already visited. Equipment management has been streamlined. You can now swap gear between characters on a single screen. This makes it easy to optimize your party without diving through multiple menus. Autosave is another welcome addition. While traditional save points still exist, the game now autosaves at key moments, reducing the risk of losing progress. It's a subtle change, but it goes a long way to enhancing the overall experience and mitigating some of the more frustrating limitations of older titles. Super Mario RPG is already on the easier side for a JRPG, but to those new to the genre looking for an even more casual experience, the remake introduces Breezy Mode. In Breezy Mode, enemies have reduced health, you gain more experience points, and action commands are far more forgiving. It's a decent way to enjoy the story without getting bogged down by challenging battles, but wasn't my cup of tea. If, like me, you're a veteran JRPG player seeking a tougher challenge, the options are limited. There's no hard mode or difficulty slider to ramp up the difficulty, and overall I would say that this game is a bit more suited to a younger crowd and those being introduced to the genre. After completing the main story, the game offers some post-game content, though not very much. You can rematch certain bosses, including tougher versions like Engine 23 Booster and Culex 3D. These matches provide a small reason to revisit the game, but they don't add substantial new content or storylines, so replayability is limited to these rematches and completing any of the few side quests you may have missed. Alright, it's time to sum up and summarize. The Super Mario RPG remake successfully revitalized a beloved classic, offering a nostalgic journey that stays true to the original spirit. Its greatest strengths lie in its authentically faithful recreation of the original, enhanced controls, as well as charming visuals and musical score. And the game is particularly appealing to fans of the original and those looking for a simple and straightforward RPG experience. However, the remake is clearly reluctant to innovate and modernize beyond surface level enhancements, and while this can be due to it being as accurate to the source as possible, it seems to me like the devs could have done just a little bit more to make the game feel less like a cheap mobile Play Store title. The retention of certain outdated mechanics and level designs, lack of voice acting, and minimal difficulty options may limit its appeal to the broader JRPG audience, and players expecting significant updates or modern gameplay features might find the experience lacking. Ultimately, the game is a solid remake that honors its legacy, but but doesn't push the boundaries of what a remake can achieve. It offers a wholesome and enjoyable adventure, but stops short of being exceptional in the context of modern gaming standards. And if, like me, you are that person who wants to revisit the charming nostalgia of the original game, but with an updated and enhanced experience, then this game is well worth the time and money. But if you're not after the nostalgia, then the somewhat high price tag for a game that doesn't really provide much more refined content than the ocean of mobile games and low-budget RPGs on Steam isn't the best bang for your buck, and you might as well use your hard-earned cash on a more refined JRPG experience. Let me know what you think about the game in the comments below, and what ideas you have to make my videos better. I do try to take them all on board so I can make better videos for you, and I really appreciate the feedback. And as always, my people, take care of yourselves.